Hello, Gates Brown.
Yes, sir. Speaking.
How are you tonight, Gates?
Good evening, Gates.
Pretty good. I can't complain. How about yourself?
I thank you for joining us, Gates. I know there's baseball to be watched on TV, and there's other things on television, but hey.
But you're here with us, and we're grateful.
We're very grateful to have you on. It's an honor to have a guy like you on our team here. Gates, I grew up, my next door neighbor when I was probably like 11, 12 years old was a huge Tigers fan. And, we watched you so closely in the early 70s. And, we used to love to watch you pinch hit and everything. You became a cult hero to many of us in this small neighborhood in Connecticut. And I just want to thank you for those memories off the top. But first, I want to get to that magical 68 season. First of all, Gates, you led the AL in pinch hits that year. But the 68 Tiger team, first of all, Gates, I wanted to get your idea about the chemistry on that team. Were you guys a bunch of good guys that got along, and did you know you could do some special things that year?
Well, after coming off in 1967 when we lost the pennant by one game, we knew we had a team capable of winning. We were a close-knit ball club. We stayed together. We was for each other, and we just knew that we were winners. We knew that we could win. And after that dismal showing in 67, we had a lot to prove, not only to ourselves, but to the people of Detroit and the state of Michigan and around the country that we could win.
And, it was such a magical year, Gates. We were talking just before you came on about some of the amazing years that some of the pitchers had. But obviously he had some good offensive players on that team, like Norm Cash. You had Willie Horton, who we had Carmen Fanzone, a former Cub, on a couple weeks ago. He had played against Willie Horton back in the old days in
as
Detroit.
A teenager.
And I think he said Willie Horton, as a high school kid, Gates, hit a home run at Tiger Stadium in the upper deck. So Willie Horton must have had some power on that ball club.
Willie was a strong man. He was really the catalyst of our ball club, and he led our team that year with 36 home runs. And as you mentioned, Norm Cash and Dick McCullough, Al Kaline, Bill Freehand, Denny McLain, Mickey Lolich, Earl Wilson, Jim Northup, Mickey Stanley. We had a whip, and we were winning, could win, and that's the way we went at it. And as far as Willie Horton, he had his best year, and a lot of us did that year, but that's to be a winner.
Tony,
yeah.
Question.
And Gates, good evening. In 1968, now 1967 in Detroit, of course, that was the year of the terrible riots, and I could remember hearing about Willie Horton having to leave the ballpark, and he was driving along in his uniform, wondering if he was going to make it home that night because Mr. Campbell had told everybody to go home. Now, you guys, the 68 Tiger team, you're credited for the healing of a city. They said that where there were riots the year before, you came out in 68 and people were listening to Tiger games on the same corner. Did you know that? Were you really getting a sense, like when you were playing, of, wow, something's changing here and this is really, really a neat thing and it's a lot different in 68 as it was in 67?
Well, myself personally, I noticed it different. In 67, the people was up in arms over each other. But in 1968, we gave them something to talk about. Now, the special thing was the way we won our ball game. We were behind a lot of games, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, but we would come back and win. And the next day, and I went around the city and, barber shops and grocery stores, and people would be talking to you, see what the Tigers did last night. They came from behind. We gave them something to talk about other than about each other. And I think that a lot of us on the team, most of us on the team, took great pride in that.
And
that's really neat.
And a lot of it came down to your prowess as a pinch hitter, Gates. 450 that year just in the pinch, 370 overall. Very impressive, 685 slugging percentage. What do you remember, Gates, about, did you just get on a roll that year and just never stop? You were hitting line drives all the time.
Well, I think, being a pinch hitter, number one, I knew that was my role. Now, at the beginning of the season, me and Mayo, we really didn't get along all together that well. Because if you can remember, we had two other left-hand pinch hitters in front of me, Eddie Matthews and Tom Manchik.
That's right.
Well, the second game of the season, I pitched hit a home run in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs to win the ball game against Boston, and we took off and we won about 9 or 10 in a row, something like that. But anyway, I worked my way up to being the number one pinch hitter, and knowing my role, I approached it positively, and I was really sort of angry too because from what I heard, they was trying to get rid of me, and Mayo wanted to trade me. But I think I had something to prove to them and myself. I knew I could do the job. I knew I could. I just believed coming off the bench that I could do what I had to do to survive. And if you looked at my career, I spent 13 years with Detroit.
Sure did.
And most of it was as a pinch hitter. And, I never was a regular, really. And you just don't stay around with one team that long if you wasn't producing.
And what a magical year it was, Gates. And maybe as we go, we could show some pictures on our screen while Gates is talking to us, because we have pictures of all the members, a lot of members of that team. But let's fast forward, Gates. Again, you guys won 103 games that year into the World Series. You come against Bob Gibson in the first game. You get whitewashed 4-0. What was the team's attitude after that first game? Did you say this is going to be an uphill battle?
Well, we knew about Bob Gibson. As a matter of fact, we lost 4-1.
Oh, okay.
But we knew about Bob Gibson, and we weren't down. Even though he did set a record for strikeouts that game, I think with 17 or something like that. But we knew we was in for a fight, and not only that, we knew that if we was going to win, it would have to be the way we won during the season, and that was coming from behind. And we did. We fell behind 3-1 in the World Series, and we came back like we did during the regular season. And if you look at it, that was our year. I mean, you couldn't take that away from us because
I certainly can't.
We had enough power that we knew that if we stayed close, we could win with the long ball. We had a good defensive team. We had a 31-game winner in Denny McLain, 19-game winner in Mickey Lolich, Earl Wilson, and Joe Sparma. We knew we had a good team to reckon with, and that's the way we approached the season and every game.
You guys bounced back good in game 2.
Yes, we did.
Home runs from Cash Horton, Mickey Lolich. Gates, we were talking about Lolich before. 3 complete games. He hit a home run that second game. He's the kind of guy I'd want on my team. When you talk about blue collar guys, I think of yourself, Mickey Lolich, a regular guy who. What can you say about the mental toughness of a guy like Lolich?
You can't say nothing but good things about him. Now here's a guy played 15, 16, 17 years in the big leagues.
Right.
Never missed a turn. And back then, pitchers were starting every 4 days. And in the World Series, he started on 3 days rest. And he won 3 games. As we know, he's one of, 3 or 4 or 5 pitchers that won 3 games in the World Series. But he was a bulldog. He came to win. He came to play. He kept us in ball games. We knew it was going to be close. All we wanted was pitchers like him and McLain and Wilson to keep us close to the ball game, because we knew somewhere down the line we was going to turn things around and come out the winner.
Ain't that great?
I was just going to say, it had to be, very reassuring, Tony, when you go out, when you have pitchers like that, and guys like Gates and the rest of them thinking, we just got to get some runs because these guys they're going to put innings there.
The game.
Yeah, but let's talk, Gates, about this just a little more about that '68 season. Again, I was talking to Tony beforehand. 31 victories for McLain. There was so much media hype about it, about him and Dizzy Dean and everything. McLain just had a magical year, 338 innings, 31 victories. Did it become a distraction, his 30-win season?
No, not really. I mean, we look forward to Denny pitching because we knew 9 out of 10 times we were going to come out the winner. Yeah, he won 31 ball games, but he finished 28 of them. Now, that's 28. I don't think the whole league nowadays finished 28 ball games.
I think you're right, sir.
But he was the type of pitcher, and back then all of them was really. Your McLain and your Lolich, your Gibson, the Palmers, they wanted to finish what they started. And it's not like nowadays they got quality innings, 6 innings is a quality start. Well, see, those words wasn't even used when we were playing. We had a starter and a reliever. That's the way we called it. Yeah. And the starters wanted to finish what they started, and this is the way that we approached every ball game, especially the starting pitchers, and they kept us in ball game. They were full of life, and they knew what they was doing when they went out on the mound. They made no excuses. They showed up, did their job, and we came out the winner.
It's so true, and we talk about it all the time here, Gates. So quote-unquote quality starts. Nowadays, a guy pitches 5 1/3, 5 2/3, gives up 3 runs. He gets a standing ovation when he's going off. I think back of Lolich and Gibson, those guys would have flipped the ball to the manager and be really mad.
I mean, there was a lot of times Mayo would come out to take, Lolich or McLain out of one of them, and they'd talked him out of it. They didn't want to come out of the ball game. And this is one reason nowadays I don't think you will see a 31-game winner again because, the quality, the starting pitcher goes 6 innings. Mm-hmm. Well, you got 3 more innings. They got the setup and the closer.
Yep.
And how many games have you seen the starter lose after he come out when he was winning? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Because they try to specialize the game so much nowadays that the setup and the reliever, it takes, after the 6th, 7th inning, it takes 3 pitchers to finish a ball game. Wow. But I don't think you'll see a 31-game winner. And if you do, it'll be a while down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'd have to be a whole change in the system, Gates, as far as how they train these kids down at the high school level and everything, because right now they're babying pitchers like crazy, and there's more injuries than ever.
I try to understand, the game. You look at the athletes, they're bigger, they're stronger, and everything else, but they keep babying the pitchers for some reason. And if you can look back and remember 1968, we were the true winners of our league.
Right.
After starting in '69, that's when they had to start having the playoffs and this and that. We were the last club that won automatically, us and the St. Louis Cardinals. And a lot has changed over the years as far as the game is concerned. But I wonder what's going on. You look at these pitchers; they're bigger and stronger, but they can't seem to go past 6 innings. So maybe it's the system. I don't know.
It is the system, Gates, and we talk about it all the time, and that's why we enjoy talking to guys like you who can bring us back. Tony, another question.
Yeah, Gates, and no discussion of '68 is really complete without mentioning McLain, Denny McLain, and as far as he had that great year, had maybe a decent year in '69, then all of a sudden his stats seemed to kind of like fall off the table. I mean, perhaps for a number of reasons. I mean, physically, was he having some arm issues?
Well, look, '68, like you said, 330-something innings, 31 wins.
Right. He
came back in '69, 124. I mean, that's, 50 games in 2 years?
Right.
His arm was spent. I mean, he finished a lot of ball games, and he just, and he was a power pitcher also, which made it hard on him.
I remember he threw hard.
He never complained. He was a hard-throwing right-hander. He went out there and gave you the best he had every night. He come to play, and his arm just went out on him. And those 2 years took a lot out of him. And after '69, it was downhill for him. But
sadly.
But if you look at 1968, he won 31 ball games, and people say, well, you got a lot of runs for him. But you got to remember one thing: his ERA was 2 point or under 2 point.
Mm-hmm.
It was somewhere around 2 runs a game. So we knew all we had to do was get 2 or 3 runs when he was pitching, and 9 times out of 10 we had a win.
Yeah, and 31-6. It's something I'll never forget. And he was something that year. But you're watching Monday Night Sports Talk here on CTV 14. We're on the phone with William Gates Brown of the '68 World Champion Detroit Tigers squad. Gates, I guess I got to mention Tiger Stadium. We've heard about it being demolished, I guess, this past summer. We've heard things back here east about they're trying to save a little part of it. But I think Tony's been there once. I never got a chance to go out there, but they say it was a heck of a place to watch
a heck of a stadium. I mean,
it
was beautiful, good background, solid dark green. It was good for a left-hand hitter. The right field fence was 325. And upstairs, the upstairs overhang came out over the field 15 feet. So it was 315 feet to upstairs hitting the home run. And it was good. Left center was, 365. So it was a good ballpark to play in. He had a good background, and I'm sorry to see it being torn down, but he had a lot of life in it.
Yeah,
It certainly
and
did.
you probably were lucky to play there, Gates. A lot of people loved it to hit, and the new Comerica part, I guess, isn't as hitter friendly as Tiger
right.
Stadium was. But it's a sad thing to see any old stadium like that come down.
For me, it is.
We're going through it now with Shea Stadium and Yankee Stadium back here east, but Tiger Stadium, for some reason, you just love to watch a game from there, and
Well, the fans was right there too. You come out of the dugout, and the fans could touch you. That's how close it was to the fans.
Boy.
They were right there. They could see the sweat on your forehead, and they could see the grimaces on your faces and things like that. They were there, right there, close to you, and it just made you want to play. It made you want to do good for the people because Detroit fans are some of the best in the country. They enjoy the game, they know the game, and they're behind their ball club 100%.
And from a hitter's standpoint, Gates, beside Tiger Stadium, what other ballparks did you really like to hit in that you felt comfortable in?
Well, I felt comfortable in Boston. Now, a lot of people say Boston, that was one of the longest right field fences, for a left-hand hitter.
Right.
But they had a nice, good, dark green background also. And it seemed like the times that I did play in Boston, I got a pretty good pitch that I could hit. Maybe because the pitchers thought the fences were so far away, they could be a little careless. But I enjoyed hitting in Boston, and it was a good ballpark to play in. And being a left-handed hitter, they really didn't have a lot of left-handed pitchers, so you didn't really have to worry about that percent of the game. So it was a good ballpark to play in. That and the Cleveland also, Cleveland Indians, Cleveland Stadium.
There you go, Tony.
Yeah. And Gates, we certainly want to tell our viewers that, your long career with the Detroit Tigers, you had played for a number of managers. You played for Mayo, you played for Joe Schultz, you played for Ralph Houck, you played for Billy Martin.
6 or 7 of them.
Yeah, and any thoughts on the managers? You can pick any one or several and tell
Well, the funny thing about it, when I got called up in 1963, Bob Sheffing was the manager. Now, by the time I went to bed that night and woke up the next morning, he had been fired, and Charlie Dressen was the manager. I never did get to play a game for Bob Sheffing.
Isn't that something?
And then I played for Bob Swift, Frank Scaff, Mayo Smith, Billy Martin, Joe Schultz, Ralph Houck. And the two managers that I thought that were the best for Detroit was Charlie Dressen and Billy Martin. Now, we had a type of ball club, like I mentioned before, with your Cashes and Hortons and Northrop and K-Lines and Stanleys and McLean, Lowleys. I always figured we should have won more pennants than we did win. And if we'd have had a manager like Billy Martin, I don't care what people say about him, the man was a winner. He knew how to win. And if you can remember Charlie Dressen, he was the one in 63, 64 that started bringing all of us young guys up, me and Freehand and Wirt, Lowleys, McLean. He started bringing us up in 64, 65, and it paid off in 68. We almost won in 67. But if we'd have had a manager like Billy Martin, he knew the game, he knew how to win. And if you can remember in 1972 when we won our division,
I watched that.
We were a bunch of old men then. We were old, we were tired, but he got the best out of us, and we did win our division. We got beat out by Oakland, but he took us to the divisional championship where we got beat out, but only Billy could have did something like that.
Yeah, he surely had the reputation as being a fiery guy, Gates.
Oh, yes.
Get on guys if they had to, right?
Yes, he was a good firer. He knew how to get the best out of his ball club, and he like I said, he knew the game. He was in it. They come to win. He had one rule, and that was for all 25 players. Most managers, they got two sets of rules. Yep. Those for the superstars and those for the everyday regular players. Oh, Billy wasn't like that. He treated everybody the same. And if you got on the bad side of it, here we get in your thing too, just like a manager was supposed to. And if you can remember about Billy Martin, wherever he went, 9 times out of 10, he always stayed in trouble with the superstars. Just like when he was in New York, he was him and Reggie, and things of that nature. He wouldn't let them do things that the other players couldn't do, and he wouldn't let them get away with it. And that's why he stayed in problems with most of his superstars he managed.
Now, Gates, getting back to your role as a pinch hitter, you know, we know with the DH coming in, the DH just was enacted right at the end of your career. I think you did a little DH in 74, 75 there.
Right.
No, I came in 72. I got 3 years out of it.
You got 3 years out of it, okay. And then I just was wondering, you know, when you're on the bench like that, you said you accepted that role, and obviously you did, and no one did it quite like yourself. But I was wondering if you had any type of specific pregame ritual. You know how guys get ready, these specialized relievers now. I mean, yourself, you don't know when you're going to come in the game, but how did you psych yourself up or get ready?
That's the hard thing about sitting on the bench being a pinch hitter. The first thing, whenever we got behind, I'd automatically put myself in the game. And I'd put myself in certain situations. Maybe 2 outs, a man on second, bases loaded, 1 out. Anyway, I put myself in a certain situation, and I knew primarily who I was going to hit for. Like most managers outside of Billy Martin, with Billy Martin, I hit for everyone on that team.
Right.
But most managers, the only guys I hit for was like Ray Euler and the pitcher, you know, and those were the primarily hitters who I pinched it against. But I put myself in the game so that when I do get in or whenever I got in, the situation wouldn't be as new. Sure, you got to get a hit, but I went over it 1,000 times in my mind during the game that if I got up with 2 outs and men on first and third or first base, how I would react. And you always got to stay positive. I don't care if you're 0 for 20, 50 going up there. You got to keep saying, this time is my time. Because the time that you say you start doubting yourself, that's when you're in trouble. And the harder thing being about a pinch hitter is you always carry your last bat around with you. If I made it out this game, I don't know when I'm going to get up again, but I know the last time I made it out. So you carry that with you. If you got a hit, you know, you have a better positive attitude, but still, you're only as good as they say as your last at-bat.
Really a specialized
Absolutely right.
art, and seems like Gates had it down. Tony, you got about 2 minutes left with Gates. Question?
Yeah, you know, Gates, and on a lighter note about getting ready for pinch hitting, is the hot dog story true?
That's one I can't live down.
You can tell our viewers.
That's a true story. You know, this particular game, Norm Cash wasn't playing, so me and him were sitting on the end of the bench, and we'd send the bat boy up to get us a couple of hot dogs. And usually I'd hit 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. It'd be late in the game. But this particular game, Mayo was managing, and it was about the 5th or 6th inning. And me and Cash was on the end of the bench, had a couple of hot dogs, and all of a sudden he said, Gates, he stopped the game and said, Gates, get your bat and go hit, or so whoever. And he kept staring at me, so I turned my back on him and stuffed the hot dogs in my shirt. I had 2 hot dogs, stuffed them in my shirt, grabbed the bat, you know, went up and loosened up. And out of all the times, I didn't care if I struck out or popped up or something. I hit one up the slot in right center, and I had to go into second head first. And when I got up, there was ketchup and mustard all over that white uniform. And I mean, it was the bench went crazy with laughter. But Mayo was kind of angry. As a matter of fact, he did fine me $100, you know. And I said, Mayo, I just drove in the run. He said, well, he says, the only reason I'm not charging you more is you're not making much now, so $100 it was. Expensive hot dogs.
That's invaluable, Gates, and that's just symbolic of the type of player back then and the blue-collar approach you guys took. And Gates, our time is just about up. We thank you for spending some time on this special 40th anniversary.
We have been honored, sir. Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate you asking for me. Thank
of the
you
Tigers
very much.
Championship, and we wish you continued luck. And please keep in touch. Hopefully, have you on again sometime soon in the future.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Good
Brown.
night.